Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking to Joey Martin. I met Joey recently. I've been looking into the whole business positions. I've been obsessed about it. Anyway, I was talking to him and he turned out like he coaches business owners, especially tech side, on being successful, profitable, so on and so forth. He kind of will go through that a little bit, but he also was a tech guy himself, AIML, so he knows that area pretty well. Plus, multifamily syndicator, so he knows real estate really well. So, hey, if you're in either fields, probably a great person to talk to. But with that, Joey, kind of, I guess, give more a little bit of a detailed history, a little bit for the PA people who want to know.
Sure. No, thanks, Raju. Gosh, so like you said, heavy background in software and real estate, lots of software development operations, lots of different hats in real estate too. So, I've had my agent's license in a couple of different states. I used to work for Zillow and I helped run their multifamily product team out of New York City. And, we got to work with a bunch of smart people there. And then eventually I moved kind of into doing my own thing in real estate. So more real estate hats that, did some fix and flips and raised some capital for some folks. And it was a bit of a long journey where I tried a lot of different things and got to see more real estate through more lenses. And that kind of led me back into wanting to build businesses because what I realized is I love real estate. I love having it as part of my portfolio, but my real passion is working with people and developing leaders. And so that kind of brought me back into software and building businesses. Most recently, the last business that I was part of was a B2B SaaS platform that was for multifamily syndicators and storage acquisition folks and small operational teams, so M&A teams to raise capital and keep relationships with their LPs and their investors. So now what I focus on, kind of two main focuses today is, I've done a lot of coaching and consulting. And so, my primary focus is coaching small startups under I say 2 to 10 million in revenue. It's typically 2 to 5 is where we can really, really come in and help one-to-one. They get stuck fairly early out of the gate, lots of them. And so, there's an area where we can help them fairly quickly. I'm also in the process of bootstrapping and starting up a new growth arm for an accelerator here in Dallas. So Hexa Global Ventures is an incubator and an accelerator, and we are going to help kind of grow their portfolio of brands. So they've got about 50 companies, and I would say 10 or 12 of them that are really kind of ready for some growth. And so I'm going to be working with them to build out the business development arm and also be coaching those business owners and founders one-on-one.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Well, let's get into your coaching program, right? I know you've emphasized the tech part, but when we talked, it wasn't, always the tech, you kind of deal with everything. So what is
Mhm.
your core focus, right? And, when we talked, you said profitability. That was
Mhm.
what we talked. So kind of, could you get into that a little bit? Like, what is that? Because they're obviously business coaching there, some people do the holistic everything together
Yeah.
versus you have a specific focus on the
Mhm.
business coaching side. So could you get into that?
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. So, the platform that I coach off of is, we're profit coaches specifically. And, the approach is helping business owners look at their business in a very holistic way.
Mm,
Oftentimes what ends up happening is they will all have very similar symptoms, right? They're maxed out on time, they're out of capital. What they were doing before is not producing for them anymore. So while it may show that they have great revenue or they had a great product, that product is no longer selling, the revenue is not resulting in actual profitability. And
mhm,
so, the approach is that, we go in and kind of help them with the areas to focus on and
mhm,
then show them how if they break this down into basically 7 different pieces that see that's my dog. If they break it down into 7 different areas, this is kind of the Pareto's principle approach that we have where we say, hey, look, let's look at your most profitable areas and
mhm,
let's focus on those. Let's put all of your time into those areas, which should
mhm,
produce about 80% of their profit.
mhm. Gotcha. So
Yep.
that is specifically really, I mean, doesn't re I mean, I know you focus on the tech, that's your main core base,
Mhm.
but basically that can fit any kind of business. So have you done other kind of, I mean, so that's another other part I wanted to ask is like, I know
Mhm.
you have a heavy background in tech,
Mhm.
but you have done obviously real estate, but what
Mhm,
other kind of businesses, I guess, in your experience, you were able to help? That wasn't,
mhm.
or I guess real estate, essentially.
Yeah, no, good question. So I think the short answer to your question is, the fundamentals themselves will work for pretty much any small business.
Mhm.
There is a limit to where that is, and it's very unique industries. Like our approach probably doesn't work if you're a very large, slow-moving manufacturing company that only has, three clients and a 3-year sales cycle or something like that, right? Like we're not a great fit for those folks. But I've helped a lot of home services businesses grow. So just kind of teeing off of those natural avenues from real estate. So software, real estate, and services. So we see a lot of these folks, roofing companies, HVAC, plumbing companies, landscapers, pressure washing and cleaning companies. They're very good at their individual skill. And
Mhm.
so they might be a framer or a roofer or good at power washing or cleaning driveways, right? And so they can go out there and they can get to the six-figure mark fairly quickly on their own energy. And so we've worked with a lot of those. I have a handful of those clients right now. And what happens is they oftentimes get trapped in the time for money loop, right? So they know that they have a profitable service. They know there's value in it, but they only know this one lever. There may be very skilled craftsmen at the individual, service that they have, but they're not great at scaling the business or marketing or positioning or keeping in touch with clients who aren't ready. So, that person may want their driveway washed every 6 months, but they don't need it right now, right? Or, it might be an annual service, but they have no way to keep in contact with them. So we help them with, positioning themselves in a very unique way from a marketing perspective, and then help them understand that if they keep themselves top of mind, have that conversation, and with their potential clients, that when they are ready, they'll reach out because they know you and they trust you.
Got you. So you kind of focus more on that side on essentially follow-up process, potentially marketing. I
Mhm.
guess in that also, do you bring marketing expertise there, potentially there for them? So what is that
Yeah,
like?
yeah, no, great question. So I think the short answer is yes. And marketing, it's a very broad term, but what I will say is this, is that there are some strategies and some tactics that work for pretty much every business. And
Mhm.
oftentimes what ends up happening for these folks is they get caught looking from sort of a first person lens where they say, they'll reach out to you, for example. Let's say somebody knocks on your door, you say, "Hi, we're roofers, we can replace your roof." And to you, you're like, that doesn't mean anything to me. You're just someone, I don't know why you would need you, right?
Right.
And so what we really coach them on is, you know, talking to their potential clients and customers, specifically where they're at. So getting inside of their head, understanding where they're at in the buyer's journey so that you can have a conversation that's meaningful for them. So
Mhm.
instead of saying, "I'm a roofer," you could say something like, "Are you tired of your, roof being the only one on the block that's covered in moss?" Right? You're tired of getting fines from your HOA, whatever it is, right? But you find some sort of pain point and also get a good understanding of who those people are. So then we meet them in the places that they congregate. So some folks, that it could be on Facebook, it could be in email, it could be, on Nextdoor or geofenced in some way. So there's lots of different ways that we can tactically implement those strategies, but really helping them take a step back and understand who their customers are so that they can say something when they have that conversation with them. The customer or potential client knows that these folks actually understand my pain. They're meeting me right where I am. I might not be ready, but I'm going to go ahead and sign up for your email. And when I'm ready to, I might have my driveway, cleaned, or my HVAC service. I trust these guys. They seem to know what they're doing.
Got you. Got you. So would you, I mean, yeah, I think you went into it a little bit about increasing the profit margin,
Mhm,
but I guess, if you could give top three rules, right?
mhm,
In increasing or top three things you see essentially.
mhm.
It could be five. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying top.
Sure.
You could say top five. Whatever you
Yeah.
feel like are the things that normally you see when you get in
Mhm.
to help people increase their profit, right? Yeah, this
Yeah.
might be giving away a little bit of your secret, but hey, you know,
Sure.
give
Yeah.
them a taste of what you do essentially.
Yeah, totally. Well, no, it's great. So I think the first thing is we talked a little bit about money and time with the business owner specifically. So, number one would be freeing the founder up, and really kind of this goes into a much larger conversation of making your business scale to whatever you want it to be, and then also being able to exit that business. So whether or not you want to sell your business or take on partners or sell part of it to someone to make some of that money, or go public eventually, or sell to a PE firm, the first thing we do is kind of get their schedule under management. And I know this sounds not very sexy, but the reality is a lot of these founders are just tapped, right? They feel like they have to be doing everything. And so the first thing is like free them up so that they can start building systems around how to repeat processes so that they can hire folks who are more labor, and they can focus on the higher ticket items. So that's kind of one area. Number one, get them better sleep, get them more time, and get them the ability to sort of remove themselves from these tasks that can be outsourced, whether it's to, entry-level employees or an operations manager. So that's one area. Another area is cost efficiency. So, oftentimes we get caught in this, kind of firefighting mode as business owners. And so what will happen is, instead of focusing on negotiating a good contract or agreement, taking advantage of payment terms like net 30, 60, 90, something like that, negotiating with your software providers, trying to find bundled packages, efficiency, spending too much on software subscriptions, doing everything manually, right? And so instead of having a system for payroll, or having a system for payments, or having a settlement system like outsourcing to a bookkeeper, right? So there's some efficiency in there, and there's also some understanding of optimizing your systems. And then, the other part of that, I'll go is many of them are not sure like where their money is coming from. So they know they might have 2 or 3 or 5 product SKUs or different services that they provide, but they couldn't tell you really what their mix is and where their most profitable area is. So they could be, for example, like a landscape service could say, hey, we do beauty bark, rock installations, we do lawn maintenance, edging, and also, seeding, right? And so they have all these services. And so let's say you've got some mix of those coming in. Well, they haven't actually broken down like what their cost, their actual ROI from an operational perspective, from their cost of goods. And so what we do, one of the areas is we take a look at those and go, okay, even though mowing grass, right, may not be the highest ticket item, it's the easiest, it's the fastest, it has the lowest, sort of callbacks, right, from a service standpoint. That could end up being their bread and butter, where you say, hey, if you wanted to do something that was higher ticket, like spraying for weeds or something else, let's grow your grass business where you're just doing edging and mowing, right? Because you're in and out in one day. You do it once a month or every 2 weeks or something. You get your highest profitability because your guys are only there for 4 hours on one day, twice a month. So we help them break that down to really understand where they should be focusing. And so if our highest ROI are in these 2 areas, we should either deprioritize these services, like don't sell them anymore until we get a better idea of what the opportunity is. Focus on these things that are going to give you the best output for your focus.
Got you. So in that sense, like what about, things you said, right? When somebody's new into business, right? Since it's one of the things I've been curious about. They don't have much of an idea. They bought the business and all. Do you also help people in that scenario where they're looking to buy a business, they don't know much about the business? Yeah, numbers looks great, all that stuff, but hey, it still has to be operated, systemized and all that stuff. So do you ever work in that area too?
Yeah. So no, it's a good question. And so, I think, maybe worth calling out here is you've got these 2 different paths, right? So I want to be an entrepreneur because I either want to make more money or I just want to choose what I'm doing, right? Instead of just doing whatever my boss says, even though you might have a great career, right? So, the 2 options is start a business or buy a business generally, right? You can buy into a business in some cases, but when you're buying a business or acquiring a business, let's say you want to grow through acquisition, the short answer is yes. Like we do help people with those things. And so there's a lot of areas. This is an area also that I see opportunities in the private equity world, because what ends up happening is, their purchase directives they have different goals, right, than you or I would if we were going to go out and buy a business. And so what ends up happening is, they either end up, I don't want to say damaging, but there is enough of a shift in the culture of that business because of the way they acquired it, the way they integrate that staff, because that piece of it, like the reason you're buying this business is it could be the culture, it could be the staff, it could be their systems, it could be their client list. There's all these things that go along that. So the short answer is yes. So we have a set of sort of onboarding and integration processes to help people sort of know which which targets are good to acquire, how to interview, who stays and who goes, like who's going to be a good fit, because not everybody, kind of the what got you here doesn't necessarily get you here, right? Like not everybody will want to come either. So it's not that, when you hire someone, you should fire these people. That's not necessarily the case. It's, who's a good fit for the next phase and do they even want to be part of it? So short answer is yes. And a lot of folks fumble this. There's no perfect. You can have frameworks and systems. There's always something that goes a little sideways because, you have to earn the trust of the staff. And, it all depends on whether or not, are you doing an acqui-hire? Are the founders staying? Because if you look at it from an employee perspective, let's say you work for a family business, a family-run business, and you've been there 10 years, and those are really your people, but it's an acqui-hire, but they're going to leave after a year or two or something like that. Like, how do you retain those employees if you feel like they were part of the reason that you bought the business? So that's another big piece of it. So you really have to earn their trust and find some sort of balance between what your future vision is, but you also need those folks.
Got you.
Yeah.
So, see, it seems like you're saying there are these pitfalls before buying a business. You look into one of that is probably the systems and processes and employee or who you need to retain.
Yep.
Is there anything else you made that I missed maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there's some standard stuff that we look at. You really want to get a good look at the books, right? The short answer here is that, the client list, the books, the contracts, the agreements, where are they at, from an opportunity standpoint? Does anybody have sweetheart deals? Will they stay with you if you buy the business? Were they only with John's Plumbing because they grew up with John and they love him so much? Maybe there's all kinds of things there. But I think those are some areas, but really getting a good look at the books. I think, one of the things that you can do when you're building your acquisitions team, get someone that understands budgets, and you have to know your numbers pretty much better than anybody else, but
Right.
get a good accountant that specializes in audits, and have them take a look at the books and go, what's really going on here? Say, I'm new at this, pay them for their time, bring them into the team. And when you have one that looks like it's good, really getting a good understanding of what's going on with that business, because many of them, kind of like I mentioned before, they're not doing monthly settlements. They don't have clarity. If it's a small business where you have an owner operator situation, you've got a lot of give backs, right? So seller discretionary earnings is what we call that in the owner operator world. And they put everything in there, right? Like, their kids' cars and their boat and their vacation house. And, they might be taking cash or points off of the company credit card, which are all totally fine things. Like from a lifestyle business standpoint, it's a great life to have. However, as an acquisitions person, if you're if you're a searcher or a buyer, those are things to be really, really cognizant of because, depending on how you're going to buy this and how your capitalization stack is going to look, like maybe you try to use an SBA loan, right? Or maybe you try to use private equity, or maybe use some of your own cash, but then have them, leave some carve outs in there, have them stay a year. How you decide how that money gets calculated, tabulated, and put into your projections will determine the level of risk for you moving forward. So that's always a bit of a sticky situation when it comes to acquisitions. I always like to focus on, is this a family business? How many employees do they have? Is everybody on the payroll part of the family too? So you're going to want to take a closer look at that. And then, when it comes time to actually value that business, take a look at the give back, so to speak, that SDE and what they're writing off, what's listed under the business, because they may only show a 40 or 50 or $75,000 annual salary, but they're bringing in 400K and it's all getting written off under the business. And, they've all got brand new cars and stuff, which is totally fine, but you have to value it that way.
Got you. So for people who don't understand what SD is, would you kind of like share that? Obviously, if you haven't looked at businesses buying or know about, could you kind of elaborate what SDE means?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a couple different ways. So when you're valuing a business, so in the public, and acquisitions world, when you're looking to trade, there's this term EBITDA, right? Which is essentially profit. It's earnings before income tax, depreciation and amortization, or depreciation and amortization. Yeah. And so SDE is the owner operator version of that. Essentially, that's what we call our profit. It's essentially their income a lot of times. And so any of their expenses, the cash they take home, and it can vary quite a bit. So you could have, an owner operator that has a small business that's taking home 75K on the books and they've got lots of write-offs, which also kind of gets calculated into that. or that it can be much higher depending on the business. And what's important there for those looking to acquire a business like this is it's great that they have this income, but it's got to get calculated in such a way that if you want to buy a scalable business, you are going to have to replace that person, right? And so whether that person is you or a member of your operating team, or you hire a skilled operator, or maybe you keep one of the senior members of that team, or even them, right? Like you have to give them a salary to do the things that they were doing. So we have to figure out what's profit and what is salary for that specific role. So there's a couple different things when you're looking at the budget projections as you're kind of putting your plan together.
Got you.
Yep.
Great. Yeah. So basically, not EBITDA, probably quite a few people understand. SDE is more all the chat bucks and all added back on so that actual revenue when you're buying.
Yeah.
So that's the actual money that you got to calculate the business valuation, right? So anyway, awesome. So with that being said, what other things that a new business owner that wants to get in, you think they should stick to what they already know, or it doesn't matter, find somebody like you can coach them through that? What would you suggest?
Yeah, no, great question. I would say have as many conversations as you can, right? So find a good, the short answer is, there's no destination here, right? People are at various points and they come to the table with different sets of skills. So, you may have someone that did business development and has an MBA, and so they're really good at budgets, but they're not great at operating. And so they might need different things. The first thing I would say is stick with something that you have some insight into so that there's less lift for you getting to understand these things. So stick with something or an area that you have some insight into. So you're like, gosh, I already know a little bit about this industry, and then lean on your skills. So you might be someone that comes to the table with software skills or leadership skills or operational skills, or let's say you are a CFO, right? You really understand the books. Then you know that like I can cover this area and I'm not great at operations. I'm not great at hiring or firing. So I need to partner with someone else. And that's kind of one of these areas where, start thinking about how to build your team. So what do I bring to the table in a partnership? And these can look all different ways, but then what also do I need in a partner, right? So for me, I should never be in charge of the books. It's just something I don't love doing. I'm really good at my numbers, but I don't want to deal with receipts or anything. I need to know all the numbers really well, but I don't want to be in charge of calculating them. I want to have all discussions, right? I want to do monthly settlements. I want to have these conversations. I know my numbers really well, but I don't want to be in charge of them, for example, right? So I'm really good at structuring deals, but I don't want to know the details once, I don't want to be in charge of putting together the documents, all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. All right. Well, we'll get into the last three questions. There was a question that came in my mind when you were saying, now I forgot. Anyway, I guess, if I remember, I'll interject in the middle
please do.
of the last three questions and ask you. Well, the last three questions before I go there, I guess, right? Anything else, kind of you want to share about how you can help business owners and all? Anything we kind of left, we didn't cover, you can think of?
Yeah, gosh. Here's the thing is that when it comes to if I look specifically through the lens of coaching, okay, not everybody's ready for a coach, right? And so from that standpoint, I think the conversation is always good. I think just seeking, from my standpoint, I will always take a conversation with just about anyone. I love to pour back into this community. I have lots of resources. I have plenty of people like yourself, like really just high quality folks in my network. So the one thing is I just meet as many people as possible, have really good conversations, get curious, ask questions, find people in your space. And if you need guidance on that, of course, I'm more than happy to help, if I've got, contacts or can make introductions. One of the things that I've done personally that has helped me, and now it's turning out to be a value add, is, I've got lots of professional networks. So these are masterminds and meetup groups and, professional networks and some organizations I'm more officially part of. Just a big network of people, and really, really just, have good conversations with them, and then be able to provide value by making introductions or recommendations and counsel where it makes sense. So from my standpoint, I will have a conversation with just about anyone. I work with a lot of early stage startups now, which I didn't expect. I thought, my path would be more towards, mid stage scaling problems. But with Hexa, we have a lot of folks that just need help. They've got wonderful ideas, and so if you're at any phase, I can at least provide some sort of value for you in some way, shape, or form.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the question came back to me. Okay.
There we go.
Question I was going to ask is, you got all these people. I don't know if you listen to Cody Sanchez, Alex Hermosi, all these guys.
Yeah.
Kind of they tell, oh, this business is easy to buy, da da da. All
hmm
that stuff is talk is great.
hmm
And when it comes to actual doing things, it's a completely different matter. They sell a
Yeah.
lot of things like you can buy this without cash and you can do that, do that.
hmm
Well, that's great. So for that, what do you say? Like, what is it you see there? Like, hey, I mean, they're selling a lot of pipe dreams. I'm not saying they're wrong, but
hmm
it's like seems like they're selling a pipe dream where everything's so simple, but it's
Yeah.
so kind of, so your thought,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great conversation because there seems to be a lot of this going on right now. And I've seen a big shift from real estate because real estate, I don't want to say it's fished out, but the huge opportunities where the advantage of relationships and data during these couple of dips that we've had over the last 15 years or so, it's not the same opportunity. You have to have a different business plan. And so a lot of folks are seeing that you can really do well buying and building businesses, right? And so that naturally, the economic rules just bring, they just bring attention and eyeballs too. So the first thing I will say is this. So I am a member of one mastermind that focuses specifically on creative deal acquisition.
Mm.
And it's the head of the mastermind. I won't say their name here, but they are focused on ethical acquisitions. Okay, what they do is they focus on creative deals and really getting to know people and providing value. So the good thing is that forces you to be creative in your structure, in the way that you reach out, the way that you think about going to get deals, which really, really helps you become incredibly adept at seeing between the lines. So that being said, it is also very challenging as a new big business acquisitions person. If you have no operational experience and if you have no acquisitions experience, it presents some real challenges where it's not that it's not possible to go out and buy a deal and get seller financing or take back or all of this stuff because those deals do exist. However, you really need to know that space. You have got to be able to convey confidence to those potential sellers in a way that they're willing to risk their equity. I mean, these people oftentimes have spent 5 years, 10 years, 15 years building a business, right? And so they might have 25 different laundromat locations and it took, they did it on, off of their own sweat, right? And their family went without for an extended period of time. And we go in and we're asking them for all of this creative deal structure and we have no experience and all these things. It sounds really great on paper. And I'm not saying those things don't exist, but you need to really, really be prepared. You have to become an expert in each of those areas. You really have to know the business, you have to know the numbers. And even then, I think you need to bring in partners, and maybe that's capital, and maybe that's someone with a balance sheet that can be a guarantor on your SBA loans or part of your operational team. So one of the things that I learned in raising capital for multifamily real estate and then getting into business acquisitions was putting together a team, a credibility packet, whether these people are there to counsel you and you pay them for their service, or you bring them into your deals and you market them as part of your deal. So you may have a commercial banker, you may have some private equity, you may have an operational partner with experience in that space. I would say you're going to want to get really focused. So to answer your question, those deals do exist. We've seen them happen on pretty much every scale, but you really have to have the chops to be able to perform, and because somebody is taking on the risk somewhere. It doesn't matter if it's the seller or the bank or your partners, right? So you might get someone that has a ton of confidence in you. They might bring all this capital to the table, but they need some assurances that you're going to be able to perform. So you may need to bring in some partnerships to help kind of bolster the team. And, you know, it really is a social business. It really is a social endeavor, right? And so part of the benefit I think to this is, you develop relationships with people, right? And that's really what ends up happening is you start building businesses with people that become kind of your best friends in a lot of ways. And so, there's some wonderful things that can happen from that. And so my short answer there is don't go after it alone. You will end up, disappointed and unhappy and run through with your confidence dinged from not seeing the success that you would like to, because it's very unrealistic to go after it and expect it to happen, quick. You can do it, but most people end up not happy with the results.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, like
Mhm.
Mike Tyson said, right? Everybody has a plan till they get punched in the face, right?
Right.
So
Right.
exactly. So anyway, all right, then now we'll get to the last three questions.
Okay.
One is, what's the best book you read that you would recommend to everybody else out there?
Oh my
Or your
goodness.
favorite book, I guess it could be.
You know, the one that stands out the most to me that helped me shift my mindset was Rich Dad Poor Dad, probably.
Mhm.
It feels like there are a lot of very specific business books and growth and mindset. So something might be great at sales, but I think that like Rich Dad Poor Dad for me laid out this clear path that made it very digestible for where I was at. So I feel like that's probably my number one. It's one of the pivotal like growth, mindset moments where it was like, gosh, because I was in the institutional path of being an individual contributor and was looking for title and time off and all of these things, and it really didn't serve me. I paid a lot of money in taxes, and I was never, I don't have a college degree. I was never going to climb the ladder and have the big title inside of a big company like that, and so I did really well for myself. But anyways, for me, it was very eye-opening that I felt like there was this whole other path that was available to me, and so that was a big pivot point for me.
Awesome. All right.
Mhm.
Then the next question is, what inspires you to get up and do what you do every day?
Oh my goodness. I think, you know, the thing that stood out most to me during COVID was that small businesses, which have been the backbone kind of our economy in our country and our neighborhoods and our communities, small business was really left out in the cold. And for me, it's helping people become better leaders
Mhm.
so that they can be better members of their community. I feel like we've gotten away from that a little bit. And I was part of this too. So I see the stark contrast of, a W-2 path is wonderful and it can provide all kinds of things for you. However, small businesses really are the backbone of our community and helping those people live better lives because many of them there's no playbook, because even if you have an MBA, you're good at some pieces of it, but not the actual running of the business. And so what happens is, you know, they end up working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They're tight on capital. They're using their own money, right? Which is fine. But what ends up happening is they start missing things like soccer games and dance recitals and anniversaries, and they don't focus on themselves. And so for me, that's huge because they're such wonderful leaders and like vital members of the community. I think it's everything, and I think they were a bit underserved. And so I feel like if we can empower them to give back into their families, they will produce the next generation of leaders.
Awesome. Great. Inspiring, inspiring way to live. I can see that. All right.
Yeah.
Last but not the least, you can only share one tip. Obviously, you've done a lot of stuff. So,
Mhm.
but you only can share one tip. What's your one tip, professional, personal, doesn't matter, that you can share for others?
My goodness. Be curious. Just ask questions, just be an absolute sponge. And whenever you meet people, try to connect with them and go layers deep into the conversation and just find out more about how they became who they are, challenges they've come across. But I think asking questions, really just living kind of curiously has been the thing that probably, and parking your ego, it's part of that is challenging your own belief system. So, be principled and open-minded. So these are the things I believe, but I'm open to hearing other things and I want to know what you think. So, look to be challenged.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great tip. And I have to say, yeah, being open to other points of view while having your own principles is a hard balance to maintain. I've
Yeah.
found out myself because I kind of trend to me being more open, but I
Yeah.
still find it hard sometimes. Like, no, that's not right. I kind of
Yeah.
did. But that's a great tip. Being curious, that's a great tip in anything. Awesome. Joey, thanks for taking the time and thanks for all the information you shared, especially about businesses. So I'll be sharing Joey's information. And so if you guys want to talk to him for your business, or maybe you just want to get into business or understand how to get into a business, whatever the case is, right? Reach out to him. Like he said, he's a great guy. He'll just talk, have a conversation. You don't have to like immediately pay him. So
Yeah. Yeah, please,
Come
please
later
do.
if you use him, then yeah, he'll come
Yeah,
later. But yeah, but he's a great guy to talk to. So again, thanks, Joey. Thanks for taking the time.
thanks, Raju. Appreciate it.